Mr. Wale Shonibare, Director of Energy Financial Solutions, Policy and Regulation Department at the African Development Bank Group, has urged the federal government to prioritize developing the power sector's infrastructure to drive Nigeria's industrial growth. He made the call in an interview with the News Agency of Nigeria, NAN, on the sidelines of the African Investment Forum Market Days in Rabat, Morocco.
Well, for any country to reach industrialization, you need to have very cheap baseload power. We've seen that with China. We're seeing that in the past. Germany used to have that. If you can produce electricity, very cheap electricity, your products are going to be very cheap, and Nigeria has that opportunity to be the kind of manufacturing base for at least West Africa, if not the whole of Africa. If we can get that power issue right, then we can add value to our production. We don't just sell raw materials. You have an aluminium smelter. To do an aluminium smelter, 40% of the cost is power. If you can get that right, we'll be producing aluminium then we'll have an automotive market where we can make cars. So all of these things are very linked.
He emphasized that the sustainability of utilities and a well-structured tariff system were essential for attracting investment in the sector.
Because the sector has to make sense. The sector has to be liquid. So it's very important that we sort out things like, the sustainability of our utilities, having the right tariff structures, because the utilities are the ones that buy the electricity. So if the utilities are not sustainable, it's very difficult to bring investment into the sector. I was very involved in the privatization effort, mobilizing investment when I was working in Nigeria about 8 years ago. But look at what's happened to all those loans that were taken at that time. So if we don't demonstrate that Nigeria is a viable investment destination, that investment will go elsewhere because capital is not sentimental. In Nigeria, there's an emphasis on making sure that we develop the infrastructure for evacuating the power. Nigeria has a lot of stranded power, that is not being evacuated. We have the generation capacity, but you have to get that power to the people, which means the transmission lines, the distribution systems, the substations, and also the collection. There's a huge metering gap in Nigeria.
Addressing the frequent grid collapses in the country, he advocated for more investment in transmission and distribution infrastructure instead of prioritizing generation alone.
The most critical thing, we have to stop the grid collapses, because if your grid is fragile, you cannot even bring in renewable energy. Because attention has been focused elsewhere. Politicians like to cut ribbons, which means they invest in generation, but it's a value chain. Transmission infrastructure needs attention. I think there's a realization that we have to do that now, and that needs to be done very urgently. And once you have that stable platform, then you can build in the other aspects. But we've learned a lot of lessons, and I still believe that in the long run, the privatization and liberalization of the sector in Nigeria is creating a lot of innovative businesses and approaches. States are taking more of the role, and the states are closer to the people. So I think that's a very good innovation, because then the governor will be held accountable for providing electricity. So, we didn't have that before because power generation was on the exclusive list. And so for me, I'm seeing a lot of talent coming out of Nigeria, and we have to mobilize our local financial sector. Nobody else is going to do it for us. So if the sector is bankable, the money will come in. We saw it in telecoms. It needs to happen for the power sector.